Good evening, folks. If you're just arriving at the meeting and you intend to vote on the official ballot, I would encourage you to proceed to the ballot clerk check-in, get your ballot, vote, check out, find a seat. If you're here at the meeting, so that we can start promptly at 7 p.m., I would ask you to start moving toward a seat, and we can start promptly at 7. Thank you. Okay. You're going to do that right here? Okay. No, that's fine. No, we can do it here. Who's going to have the... Okay. All right. Okay. Sounds good. So... Yeah. Just a reminder that if you're just arriving and you intend to vote on the warrant, you'll need a wristband that looks like this, and you'll need a voting card that looks like this. If you don't have those, proceed to the check-in ballot clerks, and he or she will verify your status as a registered voter. Just while we're waiting here, can everybody hear me okay? We're good in the back rows? Is it clear? Okay. It's 1 minute before 7. If you're in line to vote, if you're in the process of proceeding through the voting, I'm going to allow you to continue even though we may run past 7 p.m. I've asked Fred Reagan to run the halls and encourage people to get in here as quickly as possible if they intend to vote on the official ballot. That's why I've been reminding you to do that. Yeah. Quick show of hands. If you're a registered voter and you intend to vote on the warrant, do you have a white voting card and a wristband? Everybody? Is there anyone who does not, who is a registered voter? If you're a registered voter and you don't have a voting card, proceed to the check-in ballot clerks, and they'll take care of you. Okay, Fred says there's no one in the halls. It is 7 p.m. Welcome to the 2023 annual meeting of the Merrimack Valley School District. I now declare the warrant open for action. And please take your seats. As is customary, I have just a few opening remarks about procedure, and we'll move quickly to the warrant. At this time, I would like to recognize Ray Fisher to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our national anthem. Thank you. At this time, as is my custom as moderator, I would like to recognize all veterans of the armed services, active, reserve, and guard. Please stand and be recognized for your service to our country. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize my assistant moderator, John Herbert, who's now presiding over the process of tabulating the votes that were cast on the official ballot. The school district clerk, Kristen Bean Warren, thank you, Kristen, who will be taking minutes on this evening's meeting. I'd like to thank all of the supervisors, all of the ballot clerks, all of the staff from the Merrimack Valley School District, who assisted in setting up the room for the meeting this evening and serving as election officials. Thank you very much. Can I have a round of applause? Thank you. I'm just going to take a moment to advise the meeting of the rules of the meeting. On your way in, you might have picked up this salmon-colored sheet. These are the rules of the meeting that I'm going to follow. Many of you who are regulars at the attendance at the school district meeting are familiar with these, but for those of you who aren't, I'm going to briefly paraphrase some of the high points. This meeting will be conducted according to the written summary of procedures in the handout. Generally, it is my practice to read the articles before deliberation. I will accept a motion to dispense with reading of the articles to expedite the meeting. Do I have a motion? A motion to dispense with the reading of the articles has been made. Is it seconded? It's been duly seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of dispensing with the reading of the articles, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the ayes have it. If you wish to speak, Please do so at the microphone. There are two set up on either side of the front part of the meeting. I will not recognize comments or motions from the floor, except for a point of order. Please state your name and town before you speak. If you wish to move the question, you must do so at the microphone, not from the floor. Anyone standing in line when a motion to move the question is in order will be allowed to speak before I will recognize that motion. Please limit comments or questions to the pending motion. If you stray too far from the subject matter at hand, I will remind you of that. I will allow anyone to speak for a first time before I recognize someone to speak for a second time. Please limit comments to 3 minutes unless you are introducing the article. Please try not to repeat what has already been said, but strive to add new information or perspective in your comments. All voting this year will be by voice vote unless a paper ballot is required or requested. If, in my judgment, the majority is not clear by a voice vote, I will move to a standing count of cards. Ballot clerks will assist with counting by sections. The far bleachers is section 1, the left floor, section 2, the right floor, my right, the right floor, section 3, and the right bleachers, section 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that will be important in case we have any paper ballot votes. In conducting paper ballot voting pursuant to RSA 40:4A, I will recognize a request for a secret ballot if requested by 5 voters present at the meeting in writing prior to a voice vote. If you wish to request a secret ballot, please approach the microphone and, when recognized, make the request and then submit names of petitioners to me in writing. Please make sure they're legible. I will ask the petitioners to please stand as I read their names so that I can verify their attendance at the meeting. If we have ballot votes, voting will proceed by section, with ushers directing when each section may vote. First ballot vote, you receive a packet of multicolored ballots. I think there are five multicolored ballots in a little packet. You'll simply have to show your wristband to obtain your packet of paper ballots. You must check in and out with the ballot clerk on that first vote. With each subsequent ballot vote, if any, you must present a proper colored ballot. I will designate the color for that vote. This will allow voting on subsequent ballot votes without checking in and out. This is to keep the process on stage and around the voting booths as orderly and as efficient as possible. Important, a ruling of the moderator can be overturned by the meeting by majority vote. If you don't like a decision I make, you can overturn that by simple majority. And if that's your intention, simply rise and call for a point of order. Any action on an article may be reconsidered later in the meeting unless reconsideration is restricted pursuant to RSA 40:10. If reconsideration is restricted, a motion may still be made to reconsider, but reconsideration can only occur at a duly warned meeting at least 7 days later, not here this evening. It goes without saying, and I've been just so impressed with this meeting over the years. Its civility, its decorum, its respect, and polite attitude toward other people's opinions and views and comments, and I have every expectation that tonight will be no different. Are there any questions on the rules of the meeting? This is your meeting. If you have a question about meeting procedure at any time during the meeting, please approach the microphone and state your question. If there are no questions, I will ask for a motion to adopt the wording of the salmon sheet as the rules of the meeting. Do I have a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second to the motion? It's been duly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of adopting the salmon sheet as the rules of the meeting, please say aye. Opposed, nay. And the salmon sheet is, the rules are adopted. The rules on the salmon sheet are adopted as the rules of the meeting. At this time, I'd like to recognize School Board Chair Celie Longnecker for introductions and recognitions.
It is on? Thank you. First, thank you all for coming out tonight. We really appreciate your being here. I'd like to start by introducing the folks here in the front. I'm going to start at the front table at my right, Laura Vincent from Loudon, Melissa Muzzy from Webster, Peggy Jones Blanchard from Salisbury, Eric Hansen from Webster, Owen Harrington from Boscawen, Sally Hirsch Dickinson from Pennacook, Jessica Wheeler Russell at large, Hillary Denoncourt, Business Administrator, Kathleen Boucher, Human Resources, and Fred Regan, Facilities Coordinator. And from my left in the back row, Lori Carey from Boscawen, Tracy Bricky from Pennacook, Bobby Joe Michael from Loudon, I'm from Salisbury, Mark McLean, Superintendent, Jim O'Shaughnessy, our attorney, and Randy Wormald, our Assistant Superintendent. I'd like to take a moment to thank Lori Carey and Bobby Joe Michael for their service as board members, as this will be their last meeting. Lori has served as a board member since March of 2005. During her time on the board, she has been chair of the Long Range Planning and Community Relations Committee and a member of Finance, Transportation, Policy, and Curriculum Committees, among others. She's chaired the SAU board and was head of the Bullying Task Force. Bobby Joe Michael has served as a board member since March of 2016. During her time on the board, Bobby Joe has been a member of the Long Range Plan and Community Relations and Policy Committees and chair of both the Curriculum and Finance Committees. Bobby Joe has also served as vice chair of the board. The board appreciates their dedication and commitment to the Merrimack Valley School District and its community. Please join me in thanking them both wholeheartedly for their service and wishing them all the best. This is also Dr. Mark McLean's last annual meeting. He will become the executive director of the New Hampshire School Administrators Association on July 1st, where we know he will continue to be a strong advocate for public education. It has been an honor and a privilege to work with him. Please join me in thanking him for his 9 eventful and highly productive years as our superintendent and wishing him the best in his new position. The Merrimack Valley School District is extremely fortunate that Dr. Randy Wormald, our current assistant superintendent, has agreed to become our superintendent. And Mrs. Catherine Masterson, the current Loudon Elementary School principal, has agreed to move into the assistant superintendent position. Their combined talent and expertise bode well for an excellent future. Please welcome them both. And finally, the incredible dedication of all our district employees and the support of the families and taxpayers of our communities are what make Merrimack Valley a district we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Okay. Just a further comment. Make sure that if you do speak this evening, speak very clearly and slowly so that everyone can hear you. Although I think the acoustics are pretty good in here, and I can certainly, everyone I think can hear me just fine. That may not be as true with the mics on the floor. So please speak slowly, and I'll remind you if it's becoming an issue. We move now to the warrant. And at this time, with the consent of the meeting, I'm going to pass over Articles 1 and 2, which are voting on the moderator and the members of the school board, as we are still tabulating the results. As soon as the results are in, we'll break in between action on articles to announce the results of Articles 1 and 2. We move to Article 3, which is the operating budget, recommended by the school board. Do I have a motion on Article 3?
So moved.
It's been moved by Tracy Bricky. Is there a second to the motion?
Second?
Multiple seconds. At this time, before we open Article 3 to discussion and debate, I will recognize Tracy Bricky to deliver some opening remarks and discussion. Thank you.
So I will read Article 3. It says, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,601,831 for the support of schools, the salaries of school district officials and agents, and for the payment of statutory obligations of said district. This article does not include appropriations voted in the other warrants. The school board recommends this article. So, we have taken into consideration advice from previous years, and we will try to be more succinct and effectively review the proposed budget. So rather than addressing every single line in the budget, tonight I'll be discussing major budget influences and looking at projected expenses and changes from this year's budget by reviewing some of the function and providing relative context. There will be a time for questions at the end of the presentation. The overall increase to the proposed operating budget of $1,015,632 is offset by a conservatively estimated increase in revenues of $601,553. This increase in revenues mitigates or decreases the impact of the district assessment, what gets apportioned out to taxpayers, by 59.23%. If we look at some of the main drivers to the overall net increase, the net increase of previously approved collective bargaining agreements for the Merrimack Valley Administrator Association and Support Staff Association, plus the health benefits increase, along with a slight decrease in retirement expenses, equals $512,647. Side by side, these changes alone are 50.48% of the overall net increase. Projected special education expenses are increasing by $806,741. If you compare this projected increase to the overall net increase, special education expenses are 79.43% of the overall net increase. The percent increase of the operating budget compared to last year's total approved budget is 2.28%. Without the reductions in the 1100 salary function and the 2620 benefits function, the percent increase would have been 3.2%. The board and administration are consistently evaluating and monitoring longitudinal expenses. This practice resulted in the board and administration being able to decrease these functions by a total of $411,886,000. Now some bad news. The district's benefits provider has issued expected not to exceed percentage increase for health benefits of 11.1%. This is the percentage increase that we used in budgeting. We know this increase will impact the proposed budget across all functions by $498,007. The good news, while it doesn't outweigh the increase for health benefits, the employer contribution rates for the New Hampshire retirement system will be going down this fiscal year. The support staff rate will go from 14.06 to 15.53%, and the professional staff rate will decrease from 21.02% to 19.64%. The decrease to these rates will provide a savings of $202,291. We know that the pre-approved collective bargaining agreements for Merrimack Valley Administrator Association and the Support Staff Association totals $216,931. And the increases for special education, as I said before, are $806,741. The district has a moral and legal obligation to meet the needs of all our learners and provide them with engaging and appropriate educational and growth opportunities. So I would like to look at some of the functions. At the beginning of each page, though, I am not going to say for every single function that this is where the 11.1% increase and the little bit of decrease happened for the New Hampshire retirements, the New Hampshire retirement system. So I will say, though, on page 5, which is the first page of the budget, there will be those increases and slight decreases in functions 1100, 1210, 1260, and 1290, if you're keeping track. But if we look at function 1100, we see an overall reduction of $248,272. The administration has carefully considered reducing several salary lines due to known retirements and turnover. We know we have several long-term teachers retiring, most deservedly retiring, in this spring, and we don't expect to onboard new teachers with contracts at those current salary levels. Function 1210, special education, this particular function has an increase of $637,493. We see a significant increase to the tuition lines. These increases are based on changing student needs and are based on what we know about the student population at this time. Function 1211, the extended school year for special education, there's an increase there for $53,847. We expect an increase of $25,000 in the transportation and an increase of $30,000 for the out-of-district tuition. Function 1260, the English language learners, the increase there is $2,687, but I didn't mean to have that, sorry. Function 1300, Career and Technical Center, Career and Technical Education, we see a reduction in this function of $30,415 due to declining enrollment in the Concord Regional Technical Center program. We continue to encourage our students to enroll in the programs offered, but feel comfortable with this reduction for the coming year. So if we move on to page 6, the functions that are impacted by the benefits are 1420, 2120, 2130, 2140, and 2149. But a few of the functions. Function 1420, the athletic programs, overall the function is increasing by $35,159. We had a contract with our we had to contract out, our athletic trainer services that were previously included in the responsibilities of one of our high school teachers. That teacher's position has changed and they're no longer able to provide those services as part of their day. The contract with the athletic trainer will not exceed $35,000. And 2130, health services, we had an opportunity here to make some reductions to the salary lines based on turnover. So going to the top of page 7, those functions that are impacted by the health and benefits are 2150, 2153, 2163, 2190, 2210, 2211, 12, and 13. Function 2150, there's an increase of $21,000 in contract speech services at the elementary level. Function 2153, we see a decrease in that function. We see savings of $3,344. We see savings in the contracted services line in both the middle and the high school levels. And these are based on changing student needs. And function 2190, student support services, the function sees an increase of $123,507. There's an addition of an Associate Director of Student Services position to be dedicated at the elementary level. This position was previously grant funded. Those funds are no longer available, but we continue to see the benefits of this additional position as it allows us the opportunity to review our special education programs for effectiveness and efficiency. We are hopeful that continued program review will also lead to financial savings and creative ideas to continue to meet diverse and changing student needs. On page 8, the functions impacted by the health and benefits are 2222, 2225, and 2319. Also, function 2225, technology services, there's an increase of $50,000 in the equipment line. These additional funds will help us to continue the one-to-one Chromebook initiative that has been largely funded by the ESSER grant funds that will be expiring in the next coming year. And function 2310 and 2311, school board services, there's an increase of $1,419 in these functions due to an increase in liability insurance premium. So at the bottom of page 8, there is function 2321, the SAU assessment. There's an increase there of $129,573. This is the SAU budget apportioned out to the 2 districts with SAU 46. This increase is due to an updated proration and preparing for separations. The SAU has seen 2 long-term employees retire in the last few years and will have another retirement at the end of this year. There are also several current employees that would be eligible for separation pay if they decided to retire at any point. This budget helps us to build the foundation for that future. On page 9, the functions that are impacted by the health and benefits increase, 2410, 2620, and 2700. Function 2410, the Office of the Principal function, there's an increase of $7,291. There was a reduction of $15,000 in one of the other high school lines. Last year, we needed to budget for the NEASC recertification, but that process is done within that year, and so those funds are no longer appropriated. Function 2620, operations and maintenance. There's an overall decrease there of $93,456. There is a slight increase in the property insurance premium, which is $10,110. And the increases are offset by a decrease recommended by administration to the health and dental line to stay current with the needs of personnel in the department. 2630, there's an increase of $10,000 based on price increases for field care. The 2700s, the transportation functions, there's a slight increase there, $2,082 for vehicle insurance premium, and an increase of $200,000 to the special education out-of-district transportation line. The increase to the out-of-district line is based on changing student needs and increases we are seeing in our contracted transportation services. 2900 function is where the previously approved and collective bargaining agreements that I already mentioned are, and that increase was $230,231. Function 4200 site improvement and 4600 building improvement, that's at the bottom of page 9 and starting at the top of page 10. These functions see a decrease of $41,300 and an increase of $71,300. Those are just based on longitudinal and expected expenses. And finishing off page 10 there, function 5220, transfer to federal, and 5221, transfer to food services. Those are flat. 5222, maintenance expendable trust fund. The last decrease we see within this budget is related to the transfer to the maintenance expendable trust. This is where the addition to last year's MET was expended in the budget. We are not asking for the voters to approve any additional funds from the unassigned fund balance to be transferred to the MET this year, so the decrease there is $300,000. Overall, the proposed budget for 23-24 is $45,601,830, up $1,015,632, 2.8% from the 22-23 total approved budget.
2.28%.
Did I say?
You said 2.8.
Oh, 2.28. Thank you. There were a lot of twos there. The main drivers for the budget were that 11.1% increase for health and dental benefits, which is $498,007. The previous collective bargaining agreements, $216,931, and the increase across special education of $806,741. So on page 11 in your packet, we can talk about revenues. Page 11, revenues continue to fluctuate year after year. This year we see a slight decline of $470,743 in our adequacy funding because of the average daily membership, but we expect an increase of $783,013 in the statewide education property tax swept revenue due to a change in the legislation. As always, district administrators and officials continue to advocate for revenues when legislation is brought forward to the State House. Please let your voices be heard to the representatives in Concord. I now respectfully open the floor to comments so that the board may hear from the public. Thank you.
Okay, Article 3 has been moved and seconded. Questions, comments, debate, amendment? Yeah, please state your name and town, Mike. Oh, it's not on. Try it now, Mike.
Mike Jetty Webster. So a couple of questions for the board. So if we take a look at page 5, under special education, I want to make sure I understand this correctly, because if you compare the amount of the benefit increase for regular ed, which would be a lot of teachers, to the amount of the benefit increase for special ed, which would be far fewer teachers, it's double the amount. And so I'm just curious what's driving that large increase for special ed benefits.
Mark, do you want to take that?
Sure.
Okay.
Without having that in front of you, Mike, I'm going to take an educated guess that the decrease in the salary line in the 1100 function has some significant impact on that benefits increase. And then the addition of a position in special education adds to some of that increase in benefits as well.
Further question?
So thanks for that answer. I mean, it's pretty significant, and again, I don't know how many there are, but you figure it'd be way fewer. So I would be curious if you could look at getting a more substantial answer to that.
Yep.
Not just
I'll
kind
pull
of
up the line-by-line budget right now.
taking a guess. The other thing is, if I look at on page 9, under transportation services, the increase of $200,000 for contracted services, is that for special ed contracted transportation?
Yes.
And so then back to page 5, under tuition and travel for special education, it's up $487,000. So is that really a $687,000 increase when you add up both tuition and travel and contracted services?
Yes, it is. And as you heard before, for special education, there's an $806,000 increase across all functions. And as you look at the condensed version under 1210, of that 487,000, most of that is going to be in tuition. It's just condensed as tuition and travel.
That's helpful. So the other piece is that the $637,000 is a 9% increase in special ed costs. And you know, when we brought the Learning Center in many years ago, it was to contain those costs and to make sure that we had available programming for students in-house. And I'm just curious why this is spiking to this degree in 1 year time.
What I can tell you is that when we budget for special education expenses is for what we know about student need at this time. There are some changing demographics with move-ins. We've had some significant building and housing that has happened here in Pennacook, and that has had a significant impact on some of our special education costs. We have some increasing costs when it comes to transportation providers, as well as some increased costs when it comes to tuition and out-of-district placements.
So in summary, Mark, you're saying it's driven by new special ed students arriving, not so much tuitioning out existing students.
Correct.
You've seen a change in the number of students that you need to provide services for.
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you were in line before you were in line, so we'll go over here. Please state your name and town.
Hi, Jen Mercer, Loudon. I have one quick question. Is there a reason why Lori Carey didn't sign the articles that were posted online? It's just kind of odd.
She wasn't there.
I have a copy of it. I don't know why.
Just-
She's here, obviously. I was thinking maybe she wasn't going to be here, but there's no reason why? Just,
No, she just wasn't there when the board was signing it that night.
okay, all right. So my comment is, it's unfortunate that the budget continues to go up and the test scores go down. Did you know that Merrimack Valley School District is ranked by schooldigger.com as 114th out of 158 schools in New Hampshire? That is the bottom 25th percentile. I'll just let that sink in. MV is at the bottom quarter of the entire state for $46 million. I won't go into details on the test scores other than say that when I was a student, getting a 40 to 50% was failing. So in layman's terms, more than half of the students that you're professing to educate are not even proficient in reading and math. That's appalling. It's obvious that just throwing more money at the problem isn't helping. It's time to get back to actually educating the kids. And I would like to propose a secret ballot to vote on Article 3.
Okay, you need to provide me with a list of 5 voters who are present at the meeting. And I will read those names now and determine whether to recognize this request for a secret ballot. The names are Jennifer Mercer of Loudon, who is present, Terry Leonard of Loudon, present, Jeffrey Leonard of Loudon, Louise Andrus of Salisbury, Mark Griffin of Loudon, and Mary Cousins of Loudon. Okay, I will recognize this request for a secret ballot. However, at this time, we'll continue to recognize those who wish to speak to Article 3, and I'll turn to this mic.
Charlie, I also have an answer to Mike's question. I found it.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mike, in the 12,
And Mark, just make sure you speak directly into the mic.
in the 1210 function, that also includes the MVSD, the support staff. So there are a lot more employees under that function than there are in the 1100 function.
Thank you. Yes.
Julian Ed Webster. I'm going to bring up Tracy Bricky's favorite subject. Since we talked about the new housing here in Pennacook, one of the things that happened in the city of Concord is the new Market Basket liquor store, that complex, which is fantastic, by the way. Concord enacted what is called a TIF district, which means the tax money that should have gone to the school goes towards pay for that traffic circle that they just put in, which means we are out more than $400,000 a year in tax revenue that should be going to the school. So I encourage you, if you live in Pennacook, that you reach out to your people in Concord. I'm a town person, so I don't know how it works in Concord, and encourage them to please to reconsider not sending us that $400,000 every year that we could be having, maybe offset some of these costs that we have. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was busy getting a ballot pack. Was there a question in your comment? Okay, thank you. We'll proceed to Carissa.
Carissa Coro, Pennacook. I have questions about 23-21. First question is, what is the superintendent's salary with bonuses this year for the 22-23 school year?
I don't have that in front of me. My base salary is $159,000. There was a longevity bonus. I want to say, I don't have it in front of me, I want to say it was $6,000 or $7,000. And there was a PhD bonus. I'm not 100% sure what that was off the top of my head.
And do we have the superintendent's salary for the 2023-24 school year?
$155,000 is the base salary.
Are there bonuses attached to that?
There is a longevity of $6,000 and a signing bonus of $10,000.
And I have 2 more questions. I wonder, Tracy, if you can speak a little bit more about the preparation for separation. Like, what does that look like? What are those funds? I just don't understand what that means.
Tracy or Mark?
Or someone else.
In the Merrimack Valley Administrators Association contract, there is a separation pay. If you are with the district for a certain amount of time, it's based on years served, base salary, the number of sick days that you have accumulated. And we have folks who have that as well in their contracts, and they qualify for that based on years of service. And that is something that we need to prepare for if and when we have folks that choose to retire.
Yeah. And my last question, thank you for bearing with me. Article 6, the contract with the tuition agreement with the Andover School District, if that is not passed, does that affect the connection between the SAU?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Further comment on Article 3? Yes, sir.
David Hemingway, Webster. First, I want to congratulate and comment and thank Fred Regan over here for all of the work that he's done taking care of all of the buildings and the schools, and the work that he's put in working with various grants and other funds, for example, with Webster, making sure that we have an emergency shelter over there now. Along those lines with building improvement, 4,600 on page 10, that has increased by 71,300. And I just wanted to give Fred a moment to point out a couple of the top priorities that he hopes to accomplish with the funds set aside for that this year. Thank you.
Speak directly into the mic, Fred.
Well, you asked for it. So some of the things that I have planned right now, and it's still early because I haven't received all of the building administrators' summer requests. We're going to continue with the HVAC at the middle school. We're going to add more lights to the bus compound. We're going to do continued repairs to the roofs. Next year, we're going to start doing some replacement roofs. There's several roofs in the district coming up on 30 years old. We're going to, this past summer, most of you have noticed, we put a sidewalk on BD Drive, and the crosswalk all the way up to the cafeteria patio. The idea there is to keep the kids out of the road. Oddly enough, that's probably one of my biggest accomplishments that I feel that's happened here since I've been here is that little 700-foot sidewalk. So Randy and I have been talking about what we're going to be doing next year. We're going to continue that. It's all part of the travel plan from Safe Routes to School that we did back in 2014. There is a grant available for that. There's usually about $2.3, $2.4 million a year, and there's usually somewhere between 35 and 40 applications for that. The complete travel plan between the middle school and high school, and again, Safe Routes to School is K through 12, K through 8. The total amount of the money was $1.4 million. The grant could have, or would, if I applied for it, would fund $1 million, which would mean that we would put a $400,000 article on the warrant. We don't think that there's a chance at all of that passing with all the other things that are going on. So we're going to chip away at it. I'm getting quotes from architect on the gray board siding that went up in the 2006 and 7 editions at Loudon Middle School and High School, which the high school, it's on the front foyer underneath the blue portico roof and on the exterior side stairwells. In Loudon, it's on the entire front over the entrance. If you look at that, you can see it's cracking. Middle school, it's on the tower over the main entrance. So I'm going to start chipping away at that. I want to replace the auditorium stage floor, and that would completely... Boy, that's surprising. We're buying some desks for the office at Pennacook Elementary School. Items on the CIP, we're replacing the roof at Boscawen Elementary School this year. That's 27 years old. We're going to reshape the baseball field in left field and the center field. When that field was built, it was built with a 1% pitch, with a straight line down the middle, a 1% pitch on the other side. So the base pass, you go up to first base, up to second base, down to third base, and then down home. So if you hit a double, you're in good shape. I want to replace the windows at Loudon Elementary School from the 1990 edition. I would really like to have a conversion to LED lighting on the interior at Pennacook. Pennacook's a big building, and I believe the cost is going to be, after Unitil share, is $140,000. And it's like a 10-year return of investment, which is a little high, but we'd be saving like $30,000 a year. I just have to see if I have that in the budget. I'd like to do an upgrade to the SAU heating system. There's 2 guys and 9 girls. Enough said. And then we'll wait and see what the principals ask for. You know, you never know what's going to come up, but that's the gist of what I have planned for next year.
Okay, further question or comment on Article 3, Lisa?
Oh, God. Lisa Laughlin Loudon. It's more of a comment. I heard a collective gasp when the number for special education services went up. And as the parent of 2 MV graduates, both of whom went their entire career through MV on IEPs, I am here to tell you that you can pay for it now or you can pay for it later. Now, granted, my children were not the severe needs that some of these children, especially the ones that we're tuitioning out, are. But my children are both working full-time and are self-supporting. So we can take the time now to properly educate and support a child with special needs. Or we can stand back and let them apply for Social Security disability and become a complete burden on the system. Most of the time, that is not what the person in question wants. So yes, that is a rather large amount of money, but I guarantee you that if we didn't spend it now, that money would be significantly larger in the long run. MV has done a great job with special education services and I can speak specifically for children with visual impairments because I work with a lot of people around the country. And they have done a great job finding solutions that are not exceptionally costly, but are reasonable and effective, and teaching the kids to use the tools. So I want to congratulate the special ed department, but I also want people to be aware that it is a really smart investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Further question or comment on Article 3? Further question or comment on Article 3? There being none, a request for a secret ballot is recognized. And the way this is going to work, because our ballot clerks are still working on the tabulation of results for Article 1 and 2, is that John Herbert, our assistant moderator, will stand at the entrance to the voting area. He will hand you a packet. He will first see that you have a white wristband. If you don't have a white wristband, you can't vote. He'll hand you a packet of colored ballot yes/no votes. There are, I believe, 6 ballots in here. Let's hope we don't have 6 paper ballot votes, but if we do, we're ready. We're going to use the ballot on the top, which is light blue, baby blue. It says yes, no on it. If you vote yes, you are in favor of adopting Article 3 as introduced, an operating budget of $45,601,831. If you vote no, you are opposed to Article 3 in adopting the operating budget. Does everyone understand the vote? Okay, John, you ready? Okay. Again, we're using the blue ballot. We'll start with Group 1 in the bleachers over here, proceed through the voting area, and let's see.
What group are we?
You will go last.
Okay.
Yeah. We're also going to need someone at the ballot box, and that will be me, because I don't have another assistant moderator. Mark your ballot yes if you're in favor of Article 3. Mark it no, you can't. Mark it no if you're opposed to Article 3. And Group 1 will proceed to vote. Who's handing out the little ballots?
Dave Rapley,
Okay. Oh, so can you handle this?
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay,
do
super.
this.
Thank you.
Well, we're last. You should go to the bathroom. What? Maybe I'll.
I've been taking notes
Yeah.
for 6 years.
Exactly. Yes, we're the last one. We're last to vote, so you should go now.
All you gotta do is say, I don't have that.
I'm going to say, any of these mess-ups is from the last one.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll start yelling. You know, and I didn't have to say. Again, and again, and again. And so I think that was much better. I can still.
And of course, hold on to the balance of the ballot pack in the event that we have additional paper ballot votes. Use the blue ballot.
Because we don't know who's voting against that.
I think that happened last time too.
Did I?
Yeah, I was like, no, it's me going. That's okay, last is good.
The privilege of being an elected official, you get to go last.
There we go, I like it.
Want to find Lee, I think.
And but the way that worked out, I didn't get a chance. Oh, he's so cute. Oh. And I think.
Yeah, there's a lot, it's
Okay.
based,
All right.
And bonus.
yeah, so it's, a lot of it's based on proration based on ADM. Boston went up more than anyone else's. And that's essentially what it is. So if you look at the way Boston has kind of trended, it's kind of, Boston goes up and down, it seems like more than any of the other towns. Salisbury, they revalued, so that's why theirs went down, because they revalued and their values are so much higher. ADM for everything except for capital costs. Capital costs based on Bell.
Okay, Group 2, you can proceed to vote.
Not incorrect.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Question.
Do they? On the Brookside and Loudon? We go to, because we're in Pembroke, right there, on the main track in Pembroke. So we order from Brookside on Manchester Street all the time.
And it's almost pretty much, it's pretty much identical.
And, I mean, they deliver, and, you know.
We order from them a lot.
So, yeah.
It's not even a Russian. To be honest.
Okay, Group 3, proceed to vote. Group 3, the floor on the right.
Yeah, teacher and a coach. Probably would have ended up as a superintendent. Where did you go to?
So he's doing AmeriCorps to transfer.
How long did it take you?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I know he's going into the file, but I know he has one up. Because, all right, you've got 80 credit. You really don't know how to. And he hit the wall.
Hi.
I mean, that was the end for him in math, and before that, he loved it. That was, you know. Yeah. I don't need to take this one.
No, just this. Although I'm going to put mine up here because I don't want to be walking up with my card. Right?
Poor ballot.
Oh,
I don't know if they might do it on CBA.
Group 4, the bleachers to my right can proceed to vote.
kind of dog. Yeah. Hi. I just have a question. I don't know. Really? What I do? Well, like 4 or 5 that money is not good. It's not. It would be, okay. You would think we're supposed to sell them, they're
Or have we already?
yeah, that would be
Once you're through the voting process and you've handed your light blue ballot to the moderator and the ballot box, please head back to your seat.
Yes. 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 Yeah, no, he mentioned that. Yeah, I like that.
Get a horse straight.
Gonna do?
If they want to hear me again, I'd be more than happy.
Yeah, it's true. You're not gonna be there.
As long as
maybe
Melissa can still be the chair. I said as long as you can still be the chair. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, really.
Policy, did somebody say policy?
Brandon, did you see the guy whose face just turned this way? He's kind of taller. He's got gray hair. He's
Glad you understand.
almost at my 12 o'clock right now.
Yep, with the,
Black jacket.
yep, black jacket. Call me.
First thing I say is, what is your policy? They're like, oh, we have a policy. 11 o'clock now.
Have you ever met them?
Oh, okay.
10 o'clock now.
Let's go look at it from Salisbury. He does his,
Charlie, what about the board?
Yeah, the board may now vote. Board and administrators.
About your Werthers? Hope you don't have to eat them all.
We can vote now.
If, again, if you're done voting, please proceed to your seat so that we keep the floor as clear as possible for those who are still proceeding through the voting process. Okay. Yeah.
I know, right? I'm so hungry too. Don't eat don't eat that.
Okay, has everyone voted with their blue ballot, yes/no ballot on Article 3 who intends to? I would ask everyone to take their seat. Assistant Moderator Herbert is now opening the ballot box, distributing the light blue paper ballots to the ballot clerks and the counting teams to be tabulated as quickly as possible. To keep the meeting moving, I'm going to suspend further action on Article 3 and proceed to Article 4. We'll return to Article 3 as well as Articles 1 and 2 once we have results of the votes on the official ballot as well as the paper ballot on Article 3. Is everyone aware of where we are procedurally? We're proceeding to Article 4, pending tabulation results on Article 3. At this time, we will take up Article 4. Article 4 is the Merrimack Valley Education Association Collective Bargaining Agreement. It's recommended by the school board, and I recognize a motion on Article 4. It's been moved by Melissa Muzzy. Is there a second to the motion? It's been seconded by Bobby Joe Michael. And I now recognize Sally Hirsch Dickinson to speak to Article 4. Oh.
Not on yet. Oh, now I am. Good evening. Thank you for being here and for being part of this process, which is so elemental and essential to our democracy. Article 4 of the draft warrant of the Merrimack Valley School District's annual meeting reads, to see if the school district will approve the cost items included in the, am I still there? Okay, sorry. Included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Valley School Board and the Merrimack Valley Education Association, which calls for the following estimated increases in salaries and benefits. 2023 to 2024, $493,613. 2024 to 2025, $362,519. And 2025 to 2026, $420,121. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $493,613 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. The school board recommends this article. The Merrimack Valley School Board and the Merrimack Valley Education Association have collaborated to bring forward a collectively bargained agreement, or CBA, to MV voters. The MVSD employs approximately 235 faculty members under the MVEA agreement. Here's some context for the MVEA 2023 to 2026 contract. The MVSD and all schools exist in an increasingly competitive and changing marketplace for education professionals. Research confirms that the most important thing the board and voters can do for our students is to put highly skilled, caring professionals in our classrooms. In order to attract and retain teachers, we need to be competitive with the current marketplace. We're hopeful that along with the great working environment in our schools and communities, this agreement will indeed allow the district to attract and retain talented, innovative, and caring teachers. Now, some details about the CBA. It is a 3-year agreement that was ratified by the MVEA on December 21st of 2022. There is a decrease in the number of student days from 180 to 177, and a decrease in the number of professional development days from 8 to 6. Some points worth noting with regard to this particular change. For many years, per the State Department of Education, New Hampshire schools have been beholden to a minimum number of academic hours, not days. Based on the MVHS Bell schedule, for example, 177 academic days at MVHS exceeds the 165-day minimum state standard by 12 days based on the hours requirement set forth for New Hampshire's high schools. The MVSD has always attempted to align calendars with Concord because of CRTC, and recently, legislation has been proposed that would compel all districts in the state to align their calendars with their regional technical center. MVSD students have always surpassed the minimum hours standard set forth for schools, and teachers have always worked the number of days required in their collectively bargained agreements. Last year, MVSD students attended school for 178 academic days. Students have rarely been required to attend for 180 days. Also, winter weather has consistently required adjustments regarding the last day of school for students in mid to late June. A 177-day calendar for students will decrease that end-of-year flexibility a bit, but will not have much of an impact on the number of days students typically attend school. Moving on to additional details in the CBA, the new salary schedule has been realigned to clearly reflect the experience and educational attainment of all professional staff. The first year represents a 3.53% increase, the second 2.47%, and the third year, a 2.79% increase. Again, the numbers in the warrant article, Article 4, 2023 to 2024, $493,613, 2024 to 25, $362,519, and 2025 to 26, $420,121. I now open the floor to feedback on Article 4. Thank you.
Article 4 has been moved and seconded and open to discussion. And just to remind everyone, this is a collective bargaining agreement. It's a straight up or down vote. It's not open to amendment. Is there discussion on Article 4? Yes.
Lisa Laughlin, Loudon. So both of my kids have graduated, but when they talk about their time at MVSD, they don't talk about the buildings, they don't talk about the books, they talk about the people. The teachers who made academic learning accessible and fun, and who often went above and beyond. Mrs. Keaton, who demonstrated what it meant to be a lifelong learner by taking ski lessons right alongside her students. Mrs. Painshow, who used a monarchy simulation to teach about the Revolutionary War that sticks with my daughter to this day. Mrs. Staples, an experienced teacher who clearly loves her job. The kids remember that movement is good for a body, but it was her consistent message that what mattered most was that students were good people. Mr. Raymond, who always made learning accessible, even to wiggly little boys. Mrs. Peroso, who took the time to understand that my son has a mind for math, but that his brain does not calculate the way the curriculum says it should. Mrs. Lockhead, who created a supportive learning environment. Mrs. LaFuller, who planned an 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. and demonstrated flexibility when she course-corrected for a government shutdown. Steve, AKA Mr. Stevenson, who checked in with the kids to be sure they were okay before launching into educating them post-pandemic. Mr. Nielsen for being, well, Mr. Nielsen, if you know, you know. I have many more names, but I will end with Mr. Sean O'Brien for being brutally honest with the kids while also being a safe space for his students, even when they weren't in his class anymore. It is the people that make a school. Our faculty are MVSD's greatest asset. They are not perfect, but they are dedicated and they are committed. Investing in the people who educate our children is an investment to all of our futures, and I hope you will show them your support by voting in favor of this contract.
Thank you. Please withhold applause. Further question or comment on Article 4? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Mary, and I'm a resident of Loudon.
Last name, Mary?
Cousins.
Thank you.
And I was listening, and I agree that all of these things are important, and our teachers, that's their job, to teach. And if they go up above and beyond, that's amazing. However, the statistics are showing that the students are failing. Why should we encourage, or why should someone get a raise if they're not even meeting the minimum level of educating the students? If I were to have a job and I am not performing, I do not get a raise. So it's showing that our students are failing, regardless of the good intent of some or most teachers. I'm not saying that teachers aren't doing their very best. I'm just saying if we're giving a raise, then it should be earned by showing that our students are gaining knowledge so that they can become successful in their futures.
Would any member of the board or administration care to respond?
No. Charlie?
Lori?
I was a Merrimack Valley student myself back in the 1970s. I've had four children go through the Merrimack Valley school system. The first graduated in 2007, the second graduated in 2011, the third graduated right after COVID in 2021, and my final child graduates this year. My 4 children have had excellent educations, most of them graduating with around 30 to 33 credit hours. They have been able to go through Merrimack Valley to charter schools like VLAX, to NHTI, as well as doing ELOs, extended learning opportunities, where one of my children got to fly to Paris, France, and live in Paris for a week and immerse herself in Parisian culture for her 5th year of French through Merrimack Valley. My oldest daughter went to RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. My second daughter went to Dartmouth College and got her PhD at the University of Wisconsin and Madison. My third daughter is at UNH in genetics. All of them had had excellent math and science backgrounds. All of them were on math team, and I know our math team here at Merrimack Valley made #1 this year, and we're off to the States on Tuesday. I also know we have outstanding sports at this school. Outstanding basketball. Look what our basketball teams did this year. Our track and indoor track team just went to the New Englands this past weekend and did an outstanding job. I can't say enough about the diversity of opportunities for our children here. I can only speak as a mom. And as a mom, I can tell you, I'm damn proud of this school and the work it's done. I don't know where your statistics come from, cite your source, but I do know our test scores are better than Concord High, and it costs us less to educate kids here at Merrimack Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please withhold applause. Further comment or question?
Do I get to respond to that?
Yes.
That's really great that your children have been successful, and it's really great that we're #1 in the math in the state right now in the competition. But that isn't every student in the, every single student is not at that level. And that's what I'm addressing, is every student, not individual students of one family. I think that every student should be at those levels. And if they're not, then the teachers are not doing their job as a whole. And that's all I have to say. And I don't think that if they're not making the grade when the scores are coming out, then teachers should not be getting a raise for it. That's it.
Okay.
I can get a source. I don't have it in front of me like he just.
Okay, don't speak from the floor, please.
Specific number.
Don't speak from the floor, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. State your name and town.
Good evening. My name is Joan Cross, Loudon. I'm a public school teacher, not in this district, and I encourage you to support this contract. I hear people talking about students, but right now this discussion is about a contract for our teachers. And I want to remind people that in teaching, there isn't advancement. We don't get a promotion. The only promotion you get is if you join the administration, and that's a whole other circle. So let's keep the focus on the teachers, and I really want to pull focus on how dedicated teachers are and how tough the job is. And it's been really hard the last couple of years. And I mean, please just support the teachers' contract. Thank you.
Okay, further question or comment on Article 4? Carissa, and then I'll recognize you.
Thanks, Charlie. I was not prepared to speak on this one necessarily, but I think it's important to note that test scores are just one blip on the map, and that we have a lot of other evidence that our students at Merrimack Valley are not failing, that they're successful. Beyond, Lori, I know your kids are great and top kids, but all of our kids are required to do projects and demonstrate their learning in elementary school and show that through their music and art and writing, and middle school and high school as a senior project. So there are lots of demonstrations and exhibitions of student work that we should celebrate. And I would encourage the board to actually really think about how we can show this community what our students can do beyond the test scores that we get scored on or in the community outward. Even just thinking about the annual report, how we can celebrate our kids and the work they do through there, not just a bunch of numbers and budget, because we were talking about human work here. This is assessment, this is teaching and learning human work, and you cannot just have one day, one test score and say that your school is good or bad. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Curtis Rude. I'm a resident of Loudon. I have been retired more than 10 years. I used to, in my second career, be a high school chemistry and physics teacher in Vermont. I remember being at a meeting where the Secretary of Education in Vermont came and talked to us about student achievement. And he told us that when they do a statistical analysis of it, that the most successful predictor of student success is the educational level of the mother and the socio and economic status of the family. Those are things that are not the purview of the teachers. Obviously, having good teaching helps, but it's not the only indicator or factor that determines the success of a student. If we do not support the teachers by giving them the raises that they deserve for working as hard as they do and being as dedicated as they are, we're going to lose the quality people we have, and we're not going to be able to encourage other qualified candidates to come and work in this school district. I strongly recommend that people support Article 4.
Thank you. Further question or comment on Article 4? Mr. Jetty.
Mike Jetty Webster. So I want to ditto everything that's been said. I think the commentary is right online, and I am supporting this article. But I want to express to the board a concern I have, and that is the reduction in time. You know, during the pandemic, our children lost a lot of time in schools. And so now we're taking days away from the contract so that students will definitely, by definition, have fewer days in the school and fewer time with their teachers. And that worries me because it's an erosion that it begins to creep. It's a 3% reduction in teacher time in terms of in front of students to 3 days. And then you have 2 days of professional development. And that's another huge loss. Our teachers need more time together. They need to be training and working collaboratively and making sure that they're at the top of their game. And losing that is a concern that I hope the board really pays attention to. And if sometimes when those losses of time occur, it's because there's not money that's available, right? So it's like, hey, we can't offer salary because of economic times, but we're gonna take away some of this time. And that's not the case here. I mean, the raises are in the agreement, but the time is still coming off. And that is gonna have a sum total impact on kids in a negative way, I feel. And I hope the board considers that carefully. The other piece, and just to respond to what Sally was saying about the vocational thing, I don't think you have that correct. You know, this school district, and I can attest to this, has always aligned very closely with Concord. There have been very few days where there has not been alignment with the CTE centers. And so even with the new law, it's not anything that's going to impact you. So, you know, the fact that if Concord does one thing or another, you know, I can tell you that the month of June, the CTE center kind of wraps up and you're not having a loss of time. So please don't point to the CTE alignment as a reason for this. You're doing it because you really believe that kids need less time in school and that shift should go back to the families. And I don't think that applies universally to everybody. That gentleman's 100% right. Lori's kids have done well because she's a smart woman, and that's the bottom line behind that, and the economics are there. The bottom line for us is we got to make sure that we're building a good system that has a lot of capacity, and there are some kids who 180 days isn't enough. Some kids should be here 190, 200 days. That's why we have extended school year. So please pay attention to the whole organization when you think about that kind of reduction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Julianne Webster. I actually want to expand upon something Carissa said. How she spoke about different activities that kids are doing and different ways of learning.
Can you speak a little slower, please?
Sorry.
And speak directly into the mic.
There's a lot of people.
Yep, that's okay.
So I go to the monthly board meetings, probably not all of them, but most of them. And lately, they've been bringing in the students from the different schools, and these children, many of them 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, are speaking about the different activities they're doing, how they're learning, you know, what they're learning, what they're enjoying out of these things, and I really think it's fantastic. And if you want to come to one of these board meetings and see the different things and ways these children are learning and see what works, come to a board meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Becky King, Pennacook. I'm a parent of 2 students in the district as well as a teacher in the district. I'm not opposed to the contract, but I want to piggyback on what Mike said. I'm really concerned about the reduction in instructional days as a parent and a teacher. And I can tell you, I have one child who has an IEP and has struggled for years, and for the first time ever this year, he got an average test score in reading. An average score for a kid who 2 years ago was 2 years behind his peers. So that's a kudos to Pennacook Elementary because they work their butts off to help my kid with a learning disability. And I've never been so happy in my life to say my kid is average. That's huge. I have another child on the opposite end of the spectrum. He is an exceptional student, and the district worked together hard to meet his academic needs and figure out the right placement for him and the right teachers for him so that he could continue to excel and skip a grade and still be competitive with his peers. So the academics is there, the school is doing what they need to do. But like Mike said, I'm really worried. I work with the lowest students to the highest students, and my low kids, I don't have enough time as it is with them. I understand the reasoning behind this. My suggestion for the board to take under advisement is if you're going to take 3 days away from our kids, get rid of your remote days. We average 3 remote days a year. They are not effective. As a teacher, I can tell you that. As a parent, I can tell you that. The teachers do the best that we can. They are not effective. So balance out the 3 days you're taking away from our instructional time by getting rid of those remote days. Concord doesn't have them. So if you want to be like Concord, don't have remote days.
Okay, further question or comment on Article 4? There being none, are you ready for the vote? All in favor of adopting Article 4 as introduced, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and Article 4 is adopted. I'm going to return now to Article 3. We had a paper ballot vote with a total of 192 votes cast. There were 156 in the affirmative, 34 in the negative, and 2 undervotes. And Article 3 is adopted as introduced. And yes, thank you. Okay. Which numbers am I reading, John? Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, I have the, what about the moderator? I have the results of Article 1 and 2 before we proceed to Article 5. Yes.
Under 41:10 for reconsideration under.
40:10.
Yes, RSA 40:10.
A motion to restrict reconsideration of the vote on Article 4 or Article 3?
3.
Okay. A motion has been, excuse me?
I'll second it.
Well, let me get it out there first. A motion has been made to restrict reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 3 pursuant to RSA 40:10 by Laura Carey, seconded by Tracy Bricky. Is there any discussion on the motion? Does everyone understand the effect of restricting reconsideration? Is there anyone who does not understand? Very well. If you're in favor of restricting reconsideration of the vote on Article 3, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 3 is adopted.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I'd like to restrict Article 4.
Okay, a motion has been made to restrict reconsideration by Article 4. State your name because you're behind a mask.
Roy Fanjoy Webster.
Thank you, Roy. Is there a second to that motion? And I'm forgetting your name. Thank you. A motion has been made to restrict reconsideration on the affirmative vote on Article 4. Is there any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor of restricting reconsideration of the vote on Article 4, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion is adopted. I'll now read the results of Articles 1 and 2, that is official ballot voting for moderator and for members of the school board. For the office of moderator, Article 1, with 371 votes, Charlie Niebling. With 50 undervotes, it's an undervote. There were apparently no write-ins. Not surprising for the role of moderator in the school district, and Charlie Niebling is elected as moderator for the ensuing year. Okay. Now, Article 2, School Board. First, the 3-year term seat from the town of Boscawen. There were no candidates on the ballot, so these are all write-ins. With 85 votes, Carla Garcia. With 183 votes, Lauren Martin. With 3 votes, Lauren Barton. With 2 votes, Tom Liberty. Is that Liberty? There were 125 undervotes. Everyone knows what an undervote is. There was no vote in that particular race on the ballot. So with 183 votes, Lauren Martin is elected to the 3-year term from the town of Boscawen. Please withhold applause. For the 3-year term from the village of Pennacook, with 264 votes, Sally Hirsch Dickinson. With 134 votes, Megan Schmidt. 22 undervotes, and Sally Hirsch Dickinson is elected to the 3-year term from the village of Pennacook. For the 3-year term from the town of Loudon, with 280 votes, Daniel York Jr. With 73 votes, a write-in candidate, Amy Griffin. A total of 49 undervotes. And Daniel York Jr. is elected to the 3-year term from the town of Loudon. And the at-large position, a 3-year term, with 127 votes, Louise Andrus. With 284 votes, Jessica Wheeler Russell. There were 7 undervotes and 1 overvote. And Jessica Wheeler Russell is elected to the 3-year term for the at-large position. And thank you to all candidates and individuals who mounted write-in campaigns to serve on the school board. Your service and your dedication is appreciated. We will move now to Article 5. Now, Article 5 is a contingent article that was only necessary in the event that Article 4 was defeated. As such, I will recognize a motion to pass over Article 5. That motion has been made by multiple people. Is there a second to the motion? There need be no debate on a motion to pass over. All in favor of the motion to pass over, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and Article 5 is passed over. Article 6 is the Andover tuition agreement. It's recommended by the school board. I'll recognize a motion to adopt Article 6. It's been made. Yes, sir, your name? Thank you, Joseph. Is there a second to the motion? It's been seconded by Lori Carey. And before we proceed to general discussion and debate, I'll recognize Lori Carey to speak to the motion.
Okay, and making no comments on my age, I remember 3 of these tuition agreements now, and the first one was ending as I was first coming on school board back in 2005. That first tuition agreement, I recall a resident from my own hometown of Boscawen being really irate at the fact it underfunded, in his belief, where it should be at. And so I advocated for being on the tuition agreement committee to help write the new tuition agreement, which we tied to the state average in an effort to try to sort of make up for the difference that the previous contract created and make more equitable contract. That contract is coming to an end after 15 years, and this is the successor contract. And just to give you a little idea of the tuition timeline on this, the agreement timeline, we started on May 10th of 2018 at the SAU 46 board meeting, looking at the current agreement to see how it had performed. On May of 2019 at the SAU meeting, both boards were asked to appoint 2 members from each board, Merrimack Valley School Board and the Andover School Board, to serve on a review and negotiation committee. Additionally, the SAU's chair could join that committee as a member representing the SAU, so 5 people on the committee. In January of 2020, the Tuition Review Committee met to discuss the initial goals, what worked, what didn't work. The Andover contingent launched their due diligence efforts to explore options and receive feedback from the Andover community because, you know, they needed to ask Sunapee, they needed to ask Kearsarge, Franklin, all the surrounding schools where they might viably be able to go to school. On December of 2020 at the SAU board meeting, the members of the Tuition Review Committee provided a summary of their meeting and the Andover steps in investigating options. During the 21-22 school year, Andover held town hall listening sessions and connected with other districts to collect information relative to a potential tuition agreement. And then September 26th of 2022, the tuition committee met, finalized details of the agreement, asked the SAU to work with legal to prepare a draft for both boards to review so that both boards would be ready to vote at the SAU meeting in December. And then December of 2022, Merrimack Valley non-public updates throughout the school year kind of culminated, leading to that December SAU meeting. And the SAU board, Merrimack Valley, was provided with a series of brief updates on the tuition agreement, September, October, and November. And then December 7th, the SAU board voted to approve the tuition agreement. We were not the only school district Andover looked at, and each provided Andover with an option. Andover felt that Merrimack Valley, of the options available to them because of the diversity of program, the teachers, the fabric of the student body, was for them the best option. And I've got to say, Tracy's gone, she's not gonna make fun of me. Back in the 1970s, when I went to Merrimack Valley, we had Andover students here, and we've had Andover students as part of the fabric of Merrimack Valley ever since. And they're great people. They are great people. To go back, the basis of determining the tuition cost for the successor tuition agreement is the DOE 25. It's a form filed with the Department of Education that is used to calculate per pupil costs. This student calculation was used as a basis of negotiation for the new 10-year tuition agreement with Andover. Things like speech, language, physical therapy, hearing, vision, or other special services that cannot be performed or administered by district personnel and are contracted out are included in that DOE 25 per pupil calculation. So if you look at their per pupil cost, all these special ed services are included. These contracted services are part of the Merrimack Valley DOE calculated per pupil cost. So we took that into consideration when we were figuring out what a base tuition cost would be. In the new Andover agreement, these types of services and expenses are not included in the base tuition rate. Andover will be responsible for the additional education costs such as speech, language, physical therapy, hearing, vision, or other services which cannot be provided in district, and these will be billed separately. The new tuition agreement base rate is 90% of what is on that DOE 25 rate from the previous year. We're always a year behind. At Merrimack Valley, there are also specialized programs for students with more unique needs, and I think you heard a little bit about some of those services tonight. These include the Merrimack Valley Learning Center, the Learning and Adjustments LNA, the Functional Skills and Functional Academics and Community Transition FACT programs. These programs are unique because they include many additional special services and additional support personnel. While these programs are included in the DOE 25 calculation, these programs are not included in the base tuition rate as part of this successor agreement with Andover. If a resident Andover student requires these services and programs, these costs will be paid in addition to the base tuition rate. So, if an Andover student attending Merrimack Valley High School requires a one-on-one professional, Andover will have to pay the entire cost of that paraprofessional in addition to the base tuition rate. Finally, there are times when other special ed or 504 expenses and accommodations are necessary. As a way to capture these variable and unpredictable expenses, the successor tuition agreement indicates that any contracted services or equipment or modifications to physical property that come as an additional expense to Merrimack Valley High School are not part of the tuition agreement and must be paid in addition to the base rate. If Merrimack Valley High School has any of these expenses for a student, these expenses currently are included in our DOE 25 calculation. So you see, we kind of had to pull this all apart. Numbers are never what they seem to be on the surface, are they? Conservatively, we estimate that this tuition agreement will bring in between $10 to $12 million in revenue overall, the period of the contract, and up to $1 to $1.2 million a year. So we're, if you would want to look at Appendix A in the successor tuition agreement, it provides a lot of this detail. I know it's really complicated. So one of the things we're going to do to try to put a little more transparency and understanding into this is moving forward, and the superintendent and his successor have assured me of this. Moving forward, the Merrimack Valley School District annual report will also include a breakdown of the revenues received via the successor agreement. So every year for the next 10 years in your annual report, and you'll let me know if this doesn't happen, right? Every year there will be a breakdown of these expenses in the annual report so that we will be able to see how this tuition contract performs, and if it isn't performing, it will be immediately available to all of us, and we'll be able to ask questions about why it isn't doing what it's supposed to do.
All set? Okay. Article 6 is open to discussion debate. And I recognize Bill Hines to speak to Article 6.
Osquin. Thank you, Charlie. The first question I've got is for Jim O'Shaughnessy. I hope I got that name right. I can't see it from way back here. Is this article, does the authority for this lie with the board, or is this just technically a advisory-only article for us? In other words, if we were to vote this down, could the board still go ahead with the agreement?
Yeah, so I'll just answer the final part of the question. Yes, they could. The authority to enter into contracts lies with the school board. So if you don't vote in the affirmative, they've already negotiated a contract. It doesn't require an appropriation by the legislative body, so the board could move forward and allow Andover students to continue to attend. I would look at this as a kind of an affirmation vote of your relationship with Andover.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful and well put. I'm here to say that I don't support this agreement, and there are two separate and distinct reasons. And so I've got to give you a little history lesson. I'm sorry, it's going to take a few seconds to get through this. This is a topic that I took up in 2003 and 2004 and have followed along and participated in over the years. So in 2003, 2004, at the annual meeting, I was present for a tuition agreement renegotiation. And I attended all of the meetings that went for that. I was physically even present when Andover and Merrimack Valley got together and the board members and negotiated that deal. At the time, we struck a 6,640 deal, and a short time after that agreement was reached, a newspaper article came out, wouldn't you know, just a little too late, and Deerfield was coming to Concord for $8,900. Kind of feels like maybe we undersold ourselves. I spoke at the annual meeting in opposition at that time to that proposed agreement. The agreement was approved. That was a 5-year agreement. At some point during the 5 years of that agreement, it became clear to the MV board that the costs were not tracking with or what we were charging wasn't tracking with our actual costs. The MV board requested from Andover that we readjust because it wasn't tracking. Andover said, nope, you got a deal, and denied our request. In 2008, the deal came to an end, and we renegotiated. And when we renegotiated, the MV board offered a new agreement, with the understanding that Andover had been underpaying. So the board offered a rate of DOE, Department of Education, Form 25, state average, and which was MV's, which MV's costs typically run less than that. We're big enough and we're able to be a little bit below that. With the stipulation that the above cost rate was because we wanted to get paid back for the years that we hadn't been paid the full amount when we had asked. Again, I spoke against that agreement for fear that we might not get paid back, because I didn't know that we would always be less than state average. Things can change over time. Again, the agreement was approved. I'm 0 for 2. Apparently, unbeknownst to me, there was some kind of a step agreement to get Andover into it, because there's going to be a big step to get them up to the state average rate. During my research, I was surprised to see that a step increase could be crafted, because we had agreed and said, this is the number. So when the year comes that it applies, it should apply. What Andover actually paid in the early years of this agreement is an area I haven't done a deep dive on. It's quite a ways back. Remember, this is a 15-year agreement. So I can't say if they actually paid state average or not. What I do have is that in the later years of the agreement, Andover has been paying state average. For financial year 2022, which is the most recent year that the DOE 25 has been published, last year, the state average was $18,869. Andover was charged $14,000. So that's really why I can't support this agreement. That's one of the primary reasons. So MV taxpayers haven't been paid back from both the first period, 2004 to 2009, and now it looks like we didn't charge them properly for the 15-year period, which was intended to pay us back for the period when they weren't paying a fair rate in the first agreement. That's my strongest point why I don't support this agreement. The second point is, and I think Lori tried to address this a little bit, and I am going to confess that I have not read through all of the minutes, but I got irate when I saw that this stuff had been taken behind closed doors. There is a law, and if there's legislators in the room, I know there's 2, Lori, you might be one, Louise Andrus is the other, 91A:3, Section K. There is no reason that these kinds of agreements should go behind closed doors at all. And so apparently that got legislated in, and it shouldn't be there. It did or would have if I had been at the table. I'm going to confess I did not follow up. The timeline was good, Lori. I asked that of Mark, and he's working on getting that stuff to me, but I haven't got it yet. So
Bill, what you have to say is important, and I'm going to allow you to continue, but I would ask you to try to
push to the end.
Achieve a conclusion.
Right. So I don't support the 10% discount. That's how do we value ourselves? I think I understand why the discount is there, but I don't support it. So I guess I'll end there, Charlie, since you'd like to get some other people to talk. I do have more things to say. One of the things that I've been asked by a couple people in the room that know I've been working on this is how much have they underpaid? And I'm sorry to say that the number is a big number, and the number that I came to is about $1.4 million. Thank you.
Okay. Further question or comment on Article 6? Recognize Louise Andrus.
Louise Andrus Salisbury. I question the legality of this warrant article because they're saying it's advisory, and I'm going to look into it Monday. Because in the past, whenever this school district has had warrant articles that say advisory, and they have listed advisory only. And I was under the impression, and which I again will look into Monday, that the voters of the school district had to vote onto this tuition, and it wasn't just advisory. I only became knowledgeable on this tuition during the last week. I haven't had time to really get into it, but I do have one question. And I'm going to back up a little bit. I love the town of Andover. Their kids are an asset to our school district. What this is about has nothing to do with the students. It has to do with this agreement. Does Andover owe the Merrimack Valley School District money? Yes or no? Or doesn't anybody know?
My understanding is the answer is no.
The reason I ask this, because I see an email after Mr. Hines sent one to the school board. I have a copy of that. And a school board member wrote back when there was question about whether Andover owed us money or not from the past, that this had been taken care of. I don't know the situation, but we have one. I don't know what's going on here, but everybody needs to question it. If when you do this tuition, you want to do it all in non-public, that's fine with me. But the public needs to know the details. Coming here tonight and just reading the details of the contract really tells us nothing, and, you know, is what's going on for figures. We really don't know, from what information we have, if Andover is paying their fair share. And I think it's something we need to find out. I think the school district, the SAU, or whoever is responsible, needs to put some information on the website of, you know, the past years of the information of how they arrived and what was paid to the school district per month. You know, just reading I read the contract, it doesn't tell me nothing. But that's up to everybody, because I'll tell you what's going to happen. I have so many questions on here. I'm going to look at this weekend, all the information I have. And I'm hoping the school board will give us more information and the SAU. If you don't, I am going to take it to the Attorney General's office, and I'm going to ask him to do an investigation, because we don't have real answers. And I would like to make a motion to table this bill. Thank you.
A motion has been made to table consideration of Article 6. Louise, I will recognize that motion. However, I'm going to allow those who are standing at the mics to say their piece before we take up a motion to table. And just so you understand, a motion to table is not debatable, straight up or down. So at this time, I'll recognize this gentleman. I think you were up there before, Carissa. Yes, sir.
David Hemingway, Webster. First, I want to say thank you for looking at this. I don't think most people would have any complaints or concerns with including Andover. A lot of camaraderie is there between all of the towns that we have, and I think it's important to recognize that. However, several people have brought forward concerns about the costs, and I would say that those are a legitimate concern for a current contract going forward. Obviously, there is some history with previous contracts. I have not looked into those, but I am looking at the contract in front of me. Everything that you have stated and the reasons for the contract, for example, the 90%, make perfect sense to me. What I would like to do to hopefully address some of my concerns and theirs is ask for a couple figures. Obviously, we don't have numbers all the time or even what we know is going to happen now, or if this is adopted. However, I will ask for two sets of figures that hopefully will shed light on that. The first is, what is our current average cost per pupil for MVSD? And the second is, under this agreement, based on the numbers that we have for the previous year, what would that expectation be per pupil for those coming in from Andover? Thank you.
Further question or comment on Article 6?
Yeah, so thinking about other folks from, like a student from, let's say, Concord who wants to come to Merrimack Valley, what would you charge tuition for that student?
Typically, a tuition rate is negotiated. We've used the Andover tuition agreement as a basis for negotiating those when we've had them in the past. And it's really typically just negotiated based on the circumstances.
So you don't set a standard tuition rate every year?
Right now, we have not set a standard tuition rate every year.
That might be something to take into consideration. Okay, thanks.
Okay, further question or comment on Article 6? A motion has been made to table Article 6. I don't believe I got a second to that motion. Is there a second to the motion? Jeff Leonard? It's a non-debatable motion. As a procedural motion, it requires a 2/3 majority to be adopted. Point of order? Okay, thank you. My apologies. There was a question in Mr. Hemingway's comments. Mark?
Yeah, I was just looking that up. So if we look at the MV per pupil cost, what I have in front of me is the high school cost. For 2021, 2022, that's the latest year that we have. Right now, that is $17,172.84. I am on a spreadsheet, so I will times that by 0.9. Hold, please. And that would be $15,544.56.
Point of order? Okay, that's actually not a point of order, but I will ask Mr. Hemingway if that clarification is consistent with your intent. Yes. Okay, did you understand the clarification?
Yeah, that was the DOE 25 number for Merrimack Valley High School. The DOE 25 breaks down cost based on location, so I have that number in front of me right here.
Okay, we have a procedural motion on the floor that is pending. The motion has been made and seconded to table consideration of Article 6. It requires a 2/3 majority of vote, as it is a procedural motion. All those in favor of tabling further consideration of Article 6, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And in the judgment of the moderator, the nays have it, and the motion to table is defeated. We now return to further consideration of Article 6, and I recognize Mike Jetty.
From Webster again. Thank you. So now I'm a little bit confused. So I heard Attorney O'Shaughnessy say that Merrimack Valley's not owed any money. I heard Bill say that he thinks we're owed $1.4 million. So I would like to ask the board, and by the way, I do want to go home tonight, so let's not do it right now. But I think a report is due to the taxpayers on exactly what the truth is. So somebody needs to crunch the numbers. It's not that complicated. How many kids from Andover have come the last many years? How much tuition was collected? And is it consistent with the words in the contract? And give us a report on that so that we know if there was an under-collection or not, so that we have that really clear. So if you would get that for the taxpayers, that would be appreciated. I think the other thing is I'm really confused by the 90% clause, because listening to Mark's numbers, it costs $17,000 to educate a kid in this school. We're going to charge Andover $15,000. That means the Merrimack Valley taxpayers are footing the rest of the bill for that educational cost. So I don't, maybe I missed it, but exactly why was there a discount being given in this case? And I'm not about trying to make money on Andover, and I love the Andover kids, so don't get that wrong either. But this is a business deal, and I don't understand the discount.
There was a question there. Would anyone care to answer it? Lori?
Isn't a discount. What we did is we sat down with Mary Paradise and Mark McLean and dissected what goes into the DOE number. And that number is an aggregate of all educational services lumped into one sum. Where we knew special ed services tend to be more, and it was not our intent to have Andover special ed services embedded into one price because the special ed services are so variable. We tried to determine what a core cost of education would be without special ed services, so those could be charged individually by student for the services they actually use. So the DOE figure shows an aggregate number. It takes the whole cost of education, divides it by number of students. There it is. It doesn't break out what is used for special ed. That's all included in that number. So in order to give a fair base tuition price, we broke that out, and then we're adding back in, charging separately for each student the special ed services. So actually, they could end up, and in some cases will end up, paying more than that DOE number, depending upon the needs of the student.
But Lori, just to clarify, when I read the agreement, and you know, so there's another comment too, which is it's on the warrant, but it wasn't provided in advance. It wasn't, the contract is what I'm referencing, right? So I had to go online, find it, download, and you know, I just think I'd ask you to make this a little bit easier. If you're going to ask us to vote on a contract, provide a copy of it in the future too. That would be just helpful. But the way I read it, it says that there are kind of normal special ed costs that are included in the base cost. And then there are extraordinary special ed costs that will be paid on a kind of a delivery model. So, you know, there are some normal special ed costs that are being incorporated in.
Right,
And then 90%.
The 504 meetings and those types of things that teachers would normally do as part of their workday, those are included in, correct?
Right, but even the 90%, because it's lagging behind by a year, so, you know, you're looking at maybe 85%. I don't know what the number would be, but it again, to Bill's point, he has always been about equity for Merrimack Valley taxpayers. That's what this whole conversation that's been going on for over 20 years has been about. Just making sure that the services, and it's this high school, what this high school provides is compensated for by Andover. And this has just raised a whole boatload of questions, and look forward to getting some more information when you have time to look into this and to get the feedback to us. You know, we should continue to be Andover's high school. We are the place where Andover has come. When that agreement was solidified years ago, it's worked beautifully, and we should continue it. But again, now we're talking business, and we got to be a little bit firmer about this. And I would ask the board for greater transparency on giving the information to us in the future so that we have it in advance.
That is why I mentioned that it will be in the annual report going forward, because I totally agree with you. I think we need to be able to see how that's performing. You know, once these agreements, I don't care what contract it is initiated, you see an aggregate number, but you don't see the breakdown. And I realize for privacy purposes, we can't see an entire breakdown, but something more segmented. So I totally agree with you, and that is why, as part of this agreement, it will be in Merrimack Valley's annual report, and I hope Andover will put it in their annual report as well.
I appreciate that. Thanks for that commitment, and I hope that's on behalf of everybody.
Okay, further question or comment on Article 6? And just a reminder that the pending question is the adoption of Article 6. If there are broader issues of discussion around past tuition agreements, I would ask that perhaps we defer those to Article 7 when we take up any other business which may legally come before the meeting, and limit comments at this point to the adoption of Article 6. Mr. Leonard.
Jeff Leonard, Loudon. I'm a little confused. You said the average student's just over $17,000? So are the taxpayers that don't use the stuff that the Andover people that are going to have to pay extra for, are we just getting overcharged?
No, it's taking an average. It's like putting everybody together in one great big pot and dividing it by the number of students we have, and that's the average. It's not a true number. That's the problem with the DOE forms, is they don't provide you with a true number. It's just like cars. We all drive cars. If you lump together all our mileage and divide it by the number of people in this room, would we all be driving the same number of miles? No, but that's the way they reach that number. It's just a convenience factor for the DOE. It's not a true factor of what it costs to educate each and every child, because each and every child needs different services. If they participate in sports, they're going to cost a little more to educate than a kid that doesn't participate in sports. If they participate in club activities, that kid's going to cost differently from a kid who doesn't. So the numbers for each child are somewhat different, and we just use an average, and that's the average. But in looking at Andover, we wanted to make sure, especially as you noticed in tonight's budget, where our special ed costs have increased so substantially, we wanted to make sure those services were paid for by Andover directly and separately from the base cost of those standard classes here at Merrimack Valley.
Okay, I still think I overpaid my taxes.
Further question or comment on Article 6? There being none, are you ready for the question? All in favor of Article 6, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Nay. Article 6 is adopted. We move to Article 7. Article 7, to transact any other business that may legally come before the meeting. Is there anyone who has any issues that are pertinent to the warrant or directly pertinent to the activities of the school district that they would like to bring forward at this time? I recognize Lisa.
First, I would like to move that we restrict consideration of Article 6
Okay.
for RSA 40.10.
Yep, I will recognize that motion. Motion has been made to restrict reconsideration of the vote on Article 6. That motion was seconded by Jessica. Is there any discussion on the motion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of restricting reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 6, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 6 is adopted. Anything else under Article 7, Lisa?
I have two items. Earlier this evening, we talked about what actually goes into an education, and when I first started attending these meetings, we had the honor and the pleasure of seeing our students recognized for their achievements. And I understand that that was dropped due to COVID. I would encourage the board to find a way to bring that back. I love seeing those kids and seeing what they'd accomplished and what they'd been recognized for across the diversity of fields. And I heard complaints that it took too much time, blah, blah, blah. But that's why we're here, is because of the kids. Secondly, I have a request on behalf of my hips, my lower back, and my ears. Could we please return this meeting to our lovely new auditorium and the comfy chairs? Please consider that going forward. Thank you.
Yes, I'll recognize you, and then I'll recognize you.
Jen Mercer from Loudon, and Lee beat me to it. I was just wondering why we cannot be in the brand-new chairs in the auditorium instead of these bleachers. And the acoustics is better there too. It wasn't too bad tonight, but in the past it's been bad. So I just request that we go back to the auditorium. Thank you.
Noted. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Dawn Platt from Salisbury.
one thing that was interesting to me tonight was we talked about, people are talking about how wonderful the school is and how good the education is, and then we had a statistic saying that we're in the bottom 25% of the state. The testing, and then the response was that the testing isn't a good indication. So one of the things I hear from parents so often is how much time their students are spent teaching for the test, taking the test, et cetera, test. What's the point of taking these tests and spending so much time and money if we're saying that they're just irrelevant? I mean, what gives us the indication of how the school district is doing? And why are we, I know we spend a lot of money on it at that point.
The tests are required by state and federal statutes, which is why.
I understand that, but is there any way we can, how are we really rating our school if what they're saying is not true? I mean, what's the point of all this?
It's a great question.
Okay. Further question or comment? Yes, Kim.
Hi, Kim Kenny, Boscawen, New Hampshire, obviously. I'm a little nervous, but Tom LaLiberty a couple years ago stood up and said, how important it was to recognize the teachers that are retiring. I'm close, I'm not there yet. However, in this district, there's a teacher retiring who was my field hockey coach my senior year at Merrimack Valley, and I'm getting ready to retire. And he's just retiring this year after 40 years, Chris Caswell. And I really, I always look forward to seeing who's retiring because even though I work in the district, I don't know everyone that's retiring, and it's nice to just see that. So I hope in the future, even though we've gone away from the books, the retirees will at least be listed with their years of service. And I really felt like, because Chris Caswell was my field hockey coach when I was a senior here, and 40 years of teaching in a district is an amazing thing, and I felt like he needed to be recognized and thanked. So that's why I stood up.
I'll recognize this gentleman, then I'll recognize you.
Hi, Spencer Dickinson from Pennacook. I'd like to ask the board to consider adding teachers or middle school music teachers back into the program. The middle school music program has been devastated by the fact that they're trying to split a teacher between the high school and the middle school. The music program has done very good things for my kid, Beatrice, and a little bit for my son, Oliver. And I'd like to see that continue. I know the new schedule is really putting a damper on the ability of the music program to flourish, but I really think, if possible, to get another teacher into the middle school to teach music, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Julie Ned Webster, I would like to adjourn the meeting.
A motion has been made to adjourn the meeting. This gentleman had stood to speak, I believe, just as you were making that motion, and I will recognize him, and then I will recognize your motion. Yes, sir.
My name is B. Dickinson, and I am Spencer's child, and I know, sorry, I am not yet of voting age, but I was wondering if it was possible to make a more complete statement as to what I see going on in the music department.
Yes.
All right, so last year, all but one of the district's music teachers left. This in itself is representative of the struggles the music department faces. Rather than keeping two
Can you slow down a little bit so everyone can hear you?
I apologize.
That's okay.
Sorry. Rather than keeping 2 positions at the middle school and 1 at the high school for a total of 3, the district opted to have 2 positions total between the middle and high schools. This is a severe detriment to the students. The number and magnitude of events, such as marching showcases, holiday ensemble, and the chocolate festival, that Mr. Foy, the band teacher for both middle school and high school and primary music teacher for the high school, has initiated and run is very significant, but he simply cannot focus on the high school in this current setup, which is a hindrance to his success. The high school has lost stability of its programming since the rearrangement of the music department. Jazz band, which I am a member of, started much later, and vocal ensemble, which I am also a part of, has had irregular meetings And due to his busy schedule, Mr. Foy was unable to personally lead the pit for the school musical, and we had to outsource a pit director. There were other could-have-been programs that did not happen because Mr. Foy could not reasonably work them into his schedule. For example, we could have had a percussion ensemble if Mr. Foy's role was strictly at the high school. The middle school has lost even more than the high school. There are no longer small group instrumental lessons. They may not have a school musical this year. Middle school is an extremely foundational time to develop musicianship, and a quality high school musician necessarily requires a quality middle school music education. As I mentioned, Mr. Foy and Ms. Araldi, the primary middle school music teacher and teacher who splits high school and middle school chorus, they must split their times between the two schools. Because of scheduling across the two schools, Mr. Foy often goes without lunch. Now, this is by choice. Mr. Foy negotiated a contract for his breaks with the union that is legal. He chose not to abide by it. The negotiated break takes 10 minutes of class time away from high school students. The only way to ensure success for the students is to use the entirety of class, which requires that Mr. Foy skip his lunch break. The only way to have him eat and use the full class time would be to reinstate a position at the middle school. At the high school, we have 3 all-state musicians. 2 of them are first chair in the entire state of New Hampshire. In a festival last year, the current freshman band members achieved platinum rank. Are these students not worth your investment? This investment is possible. Just this year, Andover added to their contract a full-time teacher, salary, and benefits for $78,000. This is doable. It is favorable. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has anything to add under Article 7? Ms. Carey.
On my way out, this is my parting shot. It came to my attention. We have 400 families in Merrimack Valley School District whose lunch accounts are past due. 400 letters had to go out to 400 families whose lunch accounts are past due. The past due amount comes to approximately $25,000, and by the end of the school year, it'd probably be more. Now, I understand wanting a tight budget and to keep things, narrow, but I don't understand not feeding children. I don't. I know that children, when they eat, they do better in school. I've seen that with my own children. And I have a rather larger than average family, and so we've had tight budgets. And I know there have been times I've sent my child to school with a peanut butter sandwich because that's what we had. And I know when my children went on sports trips, they wanted to be like other children. And when they stopped at McDonald's and didn't have money to buy a burger, they would wait for their other colleagues on the sports teams to buy their meals and leave their change on the tray, which they threw into the dump. And they'd get that change so they could have a burger with their teammates. So I totally understand those 400 families who are unable to pay their school lunch bill. And I just think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. During COVID, as horrible as that all was, the one good thing we had is we fed everybody. We didn't care whether you were rich or you were poor. Everybody got fed, and we all ate the same food. And I just want everyone to think about that. Is it right for us to let 400 children in our school district who can't afford to eat run up their lunch account that we know we probably won't collect? Or should we make some sort of commitment to just say every child can eat, period?
Any other questions or comments under Article 7? Okay, before I recognize the motion to adjourn, I just want to remind elected and re-elected members of the school board to stick around to be sworn in. And at this time, I will recognize a vote on the motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you for attending the meeting, and we'll see you next year.